Everybody, you're listening to the Khandaan podcast by the You Podcast team, a bi-weekly podcast revisiting the movies of Aamir Khan, Salman Khan and Shah Rukh Khan.
Every show, we pick a random year from 3 decades of collectively 300 films the Khans have done and let our listeners vote which movie we should talk about. So it's entirely up to you.
Pick a team, make a vote, take us down nostalgia lane, punish us, or make us reassess a movie we dismissed.
We love the Khans, most of us, sometimes. And we would love for you all to be part of our Khandaan, because when it comes to the Khans in Bollywood, nothing else really matters.
Hi and welcome to a new episode of the Khandaan podcast. Hi guys, hi everybody.
Hello.
And for this episode, we have a massive movie we're talking about. We're talking about Thugs of Hindostan, which might be called like one of the biggest disasters, it seems, in Bollywood year, at least in 2018. And we have Sunny Singh with us, who is a writer. And Sunny, honestly, I knew you more like as a voice for diversity on Twitter and like just an interesting voice. And I actually looked at your bio and I was like, wow, you've actually written a book on Amitabh Bachchan. So I was quite surprised about that. So welcome on the show, Sunny.
Oh, well, thank you. Yes, I've actually, that's my 5th book, although not all on Amitabh Bachchan. Twitter does strange things. People forget that we exist beyond it.
So it's good to kind of, get you on and talk about something completely frivolous like Bollywood and Thugs of Hindostan.
Hey, my PhD is on Bollywood.
Okay.
So nothing frivolous about it.
I'm just hoping you'll give us the context we need to talk about Amitabh in Thugs of Hindostan, at least,
Absolutely. All happy to do that. I did write a book, and even Mr. Bachchan himself calls it detailed and well-researched. So that's good. So
Can you tell us like a little bit more about that book, by the way? Because I think our audience would love it.
Well, yeah, sure. It was actually, funnily enough, it's not a biography. It's a study of his films. And I'm an academic. I research popular culture. And so British Film Institute has a series on film stars. So they've got books on Elizabeth Taylor and, the usual. And they reached out a few years ago. The series editor said, we need a book on Bachchan. The biggest star in the world.
Right.
So that's really what it came out to. I did lots of research. It took about 5 years, even with all the stuff I have in my head, to detail it. And it's a study of his stardom. He has been, 2019, that's 49 years since his debut film.
Right.
Wow.
And he is the longest running mega star, global film star that we have. There is no precedence for him. There is no equivalent for him in any industry. So it's a really, interesting. For me, it was interesting to write a book without the hindsight. So, we can look at his stuff from the 70s and 80s and we've got some level of distance, but he's still producing films.
Right.
And he's still pushing boundaries critically, politically, in terms of box office. So you go, what do we say about this guy, right? We don't, he'll just keep going. So, that's more or less the book. And the book is very more, I think, to do with his films, the context within India. There's a really interesting way to think about it, where we like stars. Actors become stars because they do something on screen that matters to us. That's really the point, right? So when you're a star like Bachchan, you've been doing stuff on films for 50 years. And it still matters to us. Why? That's the big mystery. And so my book kind of charts out all the different ways he does things that ties into what happens in India, what happens in the world, and why he continues to matter to us.
I mean, I think I'm probably the biggest Bachchan fan on here from Amrita. What I find interesting is what you say that there's no equivalent to him, because I remember back in the day, I used to try to explain to my non-Desi friends what Bachchan is, and I used to say, oh, he's kind of like Al Pacino, but if you add this and you add Clint Eastwood, but it just makes him, it diminishes him. You cannot compare Amitabh to Al Pacino, Al Pacino's done some great movies, but he's not Amitabh Bachchan, There's nobody like him. It's insane.
Yeah. I mean, when I travel, it's really funny because in different parts. So this is South Africa, it's Nigeria, Senegal, all through the, Egypt. And the first thing people will go, Indian. And the next thing is Amitabh Bachchan.
Yeah.
Amitabh Bachchan opens more doors to talk to people than anything else in the world.
Although when I was in Morocco visiting with the family, everybody was screaming Katrina Kapoor to my wife. So apparently Katrina Kapoor is the next one.
Yeah. I got Zeenat Aman in Morocco, so I think that might have to do with my age.
Yeah, they're giving age-appropriate compliments to the women. Age-appropriate catcalling in Morocco.
Yeah. Hey, why not?
So, Sunny, it sounds like this is a book, this is an amazing book for fans, but it's also a book for people who are not fans, like people who might not know anything about Bachchan. Is that fair to say?
Yes, I think so. I mean, I wrote this book, but it's also for people who love cinema and want to know more. They want to understand cinema, because I think, we have this terrible way of writing about cinema in especially in India, but also elsewhere, where we either write as fans or we take this really, smug, I am an academic, I'm an intellectual, and then everything that's popular culture is somehow, below me. And this is a kind of in between, saying this is really important for us, but it's also, I hate the really difficult way of writing things. So it's fun, it's got lots of anecdotes, it's got lots of information. It's meant for anybody who likes Bachchan or cinema. That's it.
Okay.
Great.
And how do you sort of locate Bachchan in the present moment, like politically, because Bachchan's always had his on-screen presence is such a politically charged, that's how he made his bones, basically. He did all those first 12 movies or something that nobody saw, and then all of a sudden he became the angry young man, and is the films of Salim Javed that just sort of our color, our view of him, nostalgically speaking, we remember him as this very specific person. And then we come to 2018 or so, which is a very political time, as you know, and I know, and everybody knows. And Bachchan is sort of retreating into that sort of establishment mode where he doesn't want to be involved or he doesn't want to be in the controversy. How do you sort of locate him within that context?
Well, it's a really interesting thing to consider, because we always look at Amitabh Bachchan in that, as you said, the angry young man mode. And that's mostly because of Zanjeer, Deviate and Sholay. And that's what constructs his great image as this angry young man. He's a man of the people. He's the proletariat, et cetera, et cetera. But by the time, if you look at all of those, he is, by Sholay, he is as much part of the establishment in the film narrative as he is in his real life. That whole idea of the proletariat has always sat very uncomfortably, because he is part of India's elite. This guy goes to some of the poshest private schools. He's got a university degree. His dad is close friends with the ruling elite. It's quite there's a point where when they moved to Delhi from Allahabad, and they go watch international movies at the president's residence. I mean, that's not exactly your, Kaike Pan Banaras wala bhaiya on the loose, right?
Yeah.
So, there is. Sorry, I'm from Banaras. Deal with the weird quirks of language. But this is exactly. But he builds this image, and his image is he tightly controls his image. So by the time emergency breaks out, his father is the only one who accepts honor from the government. So he's very much aligned with the elite all the way through. Now comes the interesting part, because he was able to play on that angry young man for a long time. Then by the 80s and the rise of the real proletariat, if you want to call it, the caste politics in India in a very explicit way, he starts to, his persona suffers. But then he reinvents himself as the neoliberal sort of pater familia, and father of the nation who's up for neoliberal economics in the 90s. But now he's really it's a strange place, because where did he go? He's part of the elite. He's about as established as you get. If you look through his films, he's always played the uber masculine, nationalist, upper caste, sovereign male. And that is highly contested right now. Hindu male for most part, although there's every X amount of time he plays, he cuts across the religion line. So, I think some of his retreat from, if you want to call it controversy, is because I don't think he knows how to position himself at this moment. And this is me speculating, obviously, his motivation. But that retreat has worked very well for him, because he did that with Emergency, where he just sort of shut down and nobody knew what he thought, what he felt. So the film press wrote whatever they wanted about him. The national press wrote whatever they wanted about him. Then film press boycotted him but he still wouldn't talk. So it he became a kind of Sphinx-like person where people could project stuff on him and sort of say, oh, this is who he is, or this is what he thinks. And I think he's using a little bit of that strategy now, where he's choosing not to say things and letting other people kind of go, oh, this is what he really thinks. He may be a liberal, he may be this, he may be that. And likely he's none of those.
I remember when I was growing up, for me, his most important movie was Coolie. Just because being a Muslim boy, I saw like a superhero on screen, right? And it was kind of the first time for me, and it was so important. So it's interesting to hear you say that he was very much kind of a pan-national Indian hero, right? And mostly a Hindu one. But where I kind of picked him up is, oh my God, he's a Muslim in this movie, Allah Rakha and all that. So it was so important for me. But I also think, and this is kind of bringing it back to our main review of Thugs of Hindostan, is like, it speaks more towards how we are as a people, that we want to deify these actors and we want to project our own maybe shortcomings, and then project these guys as these larger than life heroes, where they're basically still just actors. And I don't know if they are the ones that should be leading this movement or leading this voice and stuff like that. I don't know. I have trouble with assigning those roles to these actors.
Well, stars and actors should not be considered social thought leaders or political thought leaders, and I think that's an important one. But having said that, look, if you, especially in a post-colonial country where film is not, film is a hegemonic enterprise, but it's also a place where conversations happen. And commercial cinema in India has had that role from day one of kind of being involved with politics, talking about, representing things, including discussions. So it's really hard to kind of not do that for people. And especially when you've got a star like Amitabh Bachchan, because you're just going, well, hey, he's pan-Indian, but he's also, for most people, I said Bhaiya on the loose, but if you think about it, he matters to people regardless of caste and creed and economic status in ways that are deeply problematic, but they are there because he somehow not just represents us, but he embodies our ideals and dreams. And that says, as you're right, it says more about us than it does about him.
And also on the flip side, I would say, if these actors that have such a pull in our culture, in the way we think, the way we dress, if they don't take a stand, who will, So again, I'm kind of like, I'm in the middle, like only, in a way, they are the only ones that can actually push change and kind of give us a new insight into things. So it is, but then again, maybe we shouldn't give them that importance of a role. So I don't know. I'm stuck with it.
I think it's easy for us because we have the power of the internet and we are educated and we consume so much. But if you look at Bachchan's birthdays and you see the amount of crowd that surrounds his house, the power that he holds of conveying something, he holds that very dearly, and so he doesn't want to. Maybe he's learned his lesson. Maybe in the past he's said something that can be misconstrued into something bigger that worked against him. So
and he's had some massive failures, politically, business-wise, career-wise. He's run the gamut, So I can understand in his, in his twilight years, he just wants to be left alone.
Well, I mean, look, and also, I think there are two impulses that kind of are fighting against each other. One side is the fact that, if he becomes too controversial, he will, and explicitly political for any side, then he loses part of his fan following. So there is that commercial impulse of retaining that fan base. And then, of course, as you said, he's got the power. Should he speak? Should he not speak? And there is this, if you want to call it, we want Bachchan to speak because we think he's on our side. And that is the contradiction that's built into him from day one.
This is basically the conundrum when it comes down to like social capital. Like, do you want social capital just so that you can say you have it, or are you going to spend it and do something with it? And I think with Bachchan, I think social media is basically his greatest enemy in that he loves it. Like, he loves the attention that he's able to get with it. But also, like, social media, if you want to be, like, a big success on it and you want to get, like, more followers, you want to get more engagement, then the currency that social media deals in when it comes to celebrity is authenticity. And Bachchan finds it really difficult to be authentic. Like, his authenticity is like, it's like Aamir, it's a very annoying, authentic person. So,
well, this is it, right? So this is okay. Now this is authentic. I love that word, but it's so problematic. So when we say authenticity, so here's a guy who grew up as part of India's elite. Right? He is somebody who has been one of world's biggest stars and the country's biggest star for nearly 50 years. He's basically not a particularly interesting person. He's a rich man with an enormous amount of success. And the only difference, so that is his authentic self.
Yeah.
But the problem is, of course, his persona on screen is the opposite. So what do you do then, right? We want him not to be authentic. We want him to be like he is on screen. And that's not necessarily his authentic self.
Yeah. We have an idea of what his authentic self should be, and that's what we want. And when he serves us up like his actual authenticity, we're just like, oh, ha.
We don't like that bit.
Nope.
Great.
Okay, so Sunny, what's the name of your book again?
Well, it's actually just called Amitabh Bachchan. So if you look Amitabh Bachchan and Sunny Singh in the same Google line, it'll show up.
So that was my other question. Where can we buy your book?
Well, there is an India edition on its way with Bloomsbury India, from what I understand. As of now, it's available only online on British pound rate, which is ludicrous. So I'm, basically going to, hopefully in the next couple of months, the India edition will hit at a reasonable rate that people can actually afford. So, but for the moment, Book Depository, other places online that will send you international books, that's where you'll get it.
So Amazon and all those.
And it's also on the BFI website, I think, if you want.
Yes, it should be. It should be on the BFI website as well.
Yeah.
And if any of you are in London, like apart from like Asim and Sujoy, like you should go down to the BFI. It's at the South Bank, and they have a lovely little bookshop, and you can find Sunny's book.
Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you. And if they don't have it, complain.
Start a riot.
And technically, if you're buying in London, you should be able to walk in and ask for it at a bookshop, Foyles or Waterstones, and if they don't have it, ask them to bring it in. Yeah. So that should be okay.
And before we move on to other things, I just want to say, Sunny, you're also the founder of the Jhalak Prize, right?
Yes.
Okay. Is that going on right now?
Well, we're accepting submissions for the third year, and they're coming in pretty okay. It's looking healthy. It's looking better at the first glance than it has in the last couple of years. Not so much in numbers yet, because I don't know what the numbers are like yet, but the range of things that are being published. So I think that's nice to know that we've pushed it across a little bit to
Do you want to tell our audience a little bit about the Jhalak Prize so they can keep an eye on it?
Sure. It's called the Jhalak Prize for Book of the Year by a Writer of Color. It's open to books that are written by writers of color in Britain. They don't have to be citizens. They can be residents. I think this is important given this country's colonial history and why people are here and the multiple status that people have once they're here. So it's open to that. It was set up to, in some ways, disrupt the lack of diversity, lack of inclusion in the publishing industry. And I think so far we're doing okay with that. It's named, by the way, just completely, very few people realize that, it's named after my grandmother, quite anti-colonial views and anti-colonial involvement way back when. And so I think it's kind of nice to have her legacy continue over on this side of the seas. Disrupting things still.
I'm so happy you explained that, because I think maybe audiences thought it's based on a Himesh Reshammiya song.
No, sorry, my grandmother got that name well before.
I know you're all singing it in your head now. I know Sujoy is.
But we'll include a link to the Jhalak shortlist from from the previous years, just so that people can get a look at some alternate reading options rather than everything.
Absolutely.
That's out there right now.
It's all the books that have been long-listed, shortlisted in the last couple of years have gone on to do amazing things. They've won other prizes. They've just done amazing things. So I would say just pick up our long list or short list for the last 2 years and read it, and you'll get amazing stuff.
Nice.
Great.
Let's move on to the few things we're doing. So we're going to be discussing a few trailers on the show. The three that came out were 0, 2.0. Should we call it 2.0 actually? And Kedarnath. And then our main review is Thugs of Hindostan. So that's what we're doing on the show. And let's get started. So which should we start? Can I start with Kedarnath, because it's the one that I did not understand at all, and apparently I'm missing a lot of context. So I love this director, and I would even.
Well.
Of course, Asim loves this director.
Why? What's wrong with him? I also always remind people to watch his movie with Salman Khan's brother, which is kind of like a Rocky. I think it's called Aryan the Unbreakable or something like that. He also did Rock On, and he did Fitur. All movies I liked.
And Kai Poche.
Also I liked.
Okay.
I like him. So that's kind of my only interest in this movie. It also launches the daughter of Amrita Singh, which I'm blanking on the name at the moment. But it's also...
Sara Ali Khan.
Sorry?
Sarah
Ali Khan.
Right.
Is that Saif Ali Khan's daughter?
Yes. But funny, they're billing her more as... No, are they billing her as Saif's daughter or Amrita's daughter? Because she looks so much like Amrita Singh, right?
She's both their daughters.
Yeah, she doesn't have a choice.
Yeah. No, I mean the marketing. You know how marketing works, right? They have to pick a side, I guess.
I think Yeah, you actually have a point in that, like, Saif is like very much into being like Taimur's dad, and like I'm like young enough to have a little baby, that whole thing. But actually, he did get married really young, so I don't know why he'd be iffy about it.
Yeah,
so
strange.
Yeah, so you guys saw the trailer. I didn't understand anything what was going on. Amrita, can you help me out here?
I feel like Sunny should explain because she's from that part of the world.
Oh, is that a specific part of the world?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, it's first of all, it's Kedarnath, right? So that's the starting point. With all the religious and Hindu significance it takes on. But what I think seems to have happened with this is that it's set in with the backdrop of the Uttarakhand floods of 2013. Now, as you know, my family is there. We live in that part of the world, and the floods were really quite a strange process because they weren't covered, and it became this thing about how many Modi sort of jetted in and jetted out, and there were all this. It became this very politicized thing. But I remember. There are lots of tweets of mine online if you ever want to do that, because I was one of the few people who was just tracking this stuff, and then luckily a group kind of emerged very quickly to just keep track of things like casualty lists, which was, it was complete administrative shambles. So, but I have a feeling none of that is going to make into the movie because, hey, it's Bollywood. So, and it from the basic tagline, it's set in that, it's got that as a backdrop, but it's all about, a love story between one of the Muslim guys who sort of carries people in, on their backs, and this woman who's on his pilgrimage. And it's a really kind of a, it looks like Milan gone wrong, or Milan updated to 2018 with the sort of, So I'm not overly convinced, or maybe it's got the guy watched Sony Mahewal too often. But I'm not overly convinced. The CGI looks, I said this back in 2000s when they had suddenly realized Bollywood had recognized digitalization and digital filmmaking and photography, and that was bad enough. But God, somebody take away the CGI from folks back in Bombay.
This is actually going to be a quite CGI heavy episode for us too. Everything is CGI based.
It's extraordinary.
And it's funny with the CGI because Hollywood outsources a lot of the CGIs to India. Like a lot of the digital work actually happens in India. So I never understand why we're not able to replicate that quality and level of work. It's the same thing with clothes, like H&M and all these companies. They're like making their clothes in like Bangladesh and like Pakistan and India. And when you go to Pakistan and India, you can't get that quality of work. It's just funny.
2 words: conversion rate.
That's a good point. But you know what? I think there's something else to be thought about. And agreed with what you mean with, why aren't we doing it? It's not. I think there's actually an issue around a complete difference in aesthetics. So Hollywood has constantly, when we talk about the sort of the invisible camera, the idea has been that somehow, to create this illusion that what you're watching is real, even when you patently know it's not. And it's kind of built on that constantly. And now when they use CGI, it's to sort of heighten reality and make you, but you still believe that your sort of Star Wars is somehow real, right? Or, Transformers. But I think what happens with India is that we just have a completely different aesthetic basis for it, where it's very clear that whatever you're watching is not supposed to be real. So the camera is intrusive, the sound is intrusive, and this goes back decades. The mise en scène is intrusive, and so now they've just added an additional crayon in the box. It's like CGI. It's like, how can we make it completely unreal? And I think that it makes for an interesting for me, and an interesting contrast and comparison, I've been looking at a lot of stuff that's coming out of China, and it's sort of somewhere closer to the way we look in India does films rather than to Hollywood. And so there's I think a bigger conversation to be had at some point around what we think is sort of quality cinema because Hollywood does it or Western cinema does it versus really quite crucial aesthetic cultural differences. I might have taken it elsewhere. Sorry.
No, I think that's a valid point, especially with like Bahubali. Like a lot of people made that call with Bahubali because they were like, well, this is not like anything we've seen before in the West. And it's very much its own thing, like its own aesthetic.
Yeah.
And even the action pieces, the CGI choices, like it was all very unique to itself. It wasn't trying to match anything or like do anything that anybody had seen before. And that seemed to work for it with a domestic audience and an international audience.
Yeah.
So yeah, you have a point.
So what did you think of the trailer, Amrita?
I don't know. Like I thought it was hilarious that like you had like all those pieces about like Sushant Singh Rajput doing like this and that, and then like at the end you have like this one little shot of Sarah, like whose debut feature this is, just like sort of looking off into the distance from like a 3/4 shot, and I was like, wow, girl, this isn't going to go well for you, is it? Like I can tell how this is supposed to go.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I think she's looking forlornly at the launch that Janhvi Kapoor already has. That's the shot she's looking at.
Cool.
She's not getting the Filmfare debut award this year.
Next year maybe with Simba, right?
And she's been waiting for this release for a while. I mean, she was supposed to be in like a whole bunch of other things, and then that didn't work out. And people are mean about Sarah online. Like people are just like, "Oh my gosh, she's so old!" Like,
really?
God, how old is she?
I think she's like 23 or something. Like,
God,
not super old, but like
people, a child.
Yeah,
that's just me.
Like people just like talk about her as if she's a geriatric. Like, oh my god, like maybe she has like 2 years tops, and then she needs to retire. And I'm just like, wow, you guys.
Wow.
Kedarnath, by the way, is already in controversy. Says because a BJP politician is asking for it to get it banned because a Hindu character is not the lead of this movie. A collective sigh.
Yeah.
Is that insulting to somebody? Is
it kind of funny to sort of go? Isn't Sushant Singh Rajput's character a Muslim?
Yeah.
Are we now going to get upset about that too? Oh
yes.
no!
Yeah.
Hindus playing everybody else. Not done.
It's a love jihad thing apparently. And by the way, I really hate the fact that we are just normalizing stupid language put forward by the right wing, like terms like love jihad and like what is it, like the other Romeo nonsense? I can't remember what it's called.
Oh God, the Romeo Patrol or whatever the hell it was. Sorry, am I allowed to swear?
Yes, sure.
Yes,
okay, sorry.
But like we just keep using their language and we just normalize it, trying to like say that it's stupid. But anyway, so yeah, I'm interested to see if this movie gets released.
It's also like I don't like. Okay, they've complained now. Like, so what is the solution? Like, should they re-edit and redo the whole movie to make him now a Hindu? Like, how is that going to work? Like, at least give something that's like constructive, right?
Yeah, I think it's also. I think we've got to stop, as you said, Amrita, about normalizing language, but we've normalized the stupidity of somebody just speaking up whatever they want. For fairly political, personal reasons, generally, because they get mileage out of it. And then it turns into this wider thing. And I think the press, for example, in India really doesn't do its job when they just make it about, oh, they are now upset and oh no. And when you look at it, out of 1.3 billion people, it's probably about 100 people who might have kind of said, oh no, this is terrible. And or maybe 1,000 Uncle G's and like 70 sitting in there like, khatias and just, staring off into the sunset going, in my day it was fine. So it's just, we play into the right wing's hand by letting this become an issue. I don't get me wrong. It's hugely problematic because, of course, they've got, they mobilize the thugs. It goes into other issues. But I think we need to sort of take control of how we discuss it and tell people that they're being stupid, that they don't get to just say, well, I haven't seen this movie, but I am upset. Well, good.
I think what I have an issue with in a way is, and I see this happening globally, is that the majority acts like they're the minority.
Oh, yeah.
If you raise a concern as a minority, I can understand you're fighting for better representation, for diversity, for your voice. But when you're already in power, you cannot be feeling victimized. You're the one in power. Your people are the ones making the decisions. So just talk to them, right? I don't understand. And I see that a lot with, especially in the US, this is happening a lot too. Even in the UK, obviously, where, white people are in majority. Your people are in power. So talk to your people,
But I think it's part of the strategy of silencing. And I mean, this is something we see, this has been argued with the Jhalak Prize, for example, when we had an MP mobilize the Equalities Commission against the prize for being racist.
Oh, wow.
That happened in the first round. We fought it back. We were very fortunate to have this amazing lawyer who stepped up for us, pro bono. But, he basically, Kiran Dorka, if we didn't have her, the prize would have been shut down because basically this right-wing conservative MP has spent much of his career shutting down inclusivity, diversity, equality initiatives, and he came after the prize and he used the Equalities Commission in order to do it. So I think it's a strategy. And I think we can't minimize it, but we also need to push back and say you don't get to use equality and diversity and social justice language in order to perpetuate an oppressive structure.
So Sujoy, Kedarnath, did you have any further thoughts on it? I mean, it's a very short, it's even a teaser. It's not really even a trailer. I think we've spoken more about it than it almost deserves to be spoken about.
I'm largely indifferent about this movie until it comes out, really.
Right.
I don't see the star power in either of the leads, and I'm not really fussed about Abhishek Kapoor as much as you are.
Yeah, I'm not sold on Sushant Singh Rajput. I don't get the hype.
He used to be the guy who would be what Rajkumar Rao is now when he started, and then he just faded out.
Yeah. I don't think he was able to really bank on the buzz he had at the start from Kai Poche.
Yeah, he had Byomkesh Bakshi and he had Shudh Desi Romance, both Yash Raj movies. Yeah, and then it didn't work out for him.
Yeah.
Unpopular opinion, I can't stand him.
Yeah. And the funny thing with Sara Ali Khan is also it's interesting to see a star launch, and I mentioned this on our Suryavanshi podcast, funnily enough. Amrita Singh was never a big part of my thing growing up. I was never really a huge fan. She was an actress that I sometimes saw. So it's funny when you're now at that level. When Abhishek launched, it's like, oh my god, it's Amitabh's son. Everybody was so excited. But now since everybody's sons and daughters have been launched, you kind of have it's almost like Marvel movies, at the start you had Iron Man, oh my god, but now we're going into the lower level of superheroes. So now we're in the lower levels of actors and actress sons getting launched. So I don't know, I have no feeling. I'm really only going to watch it because of Abhishek Kapoor, the director, who I like. Speaking of controversy, I also saw that Zero also got into a bit of controversy. I don't know if you guys noticed this.
Yeah.
No.
So,
educate us.
One of the Sikh organizations writes a letter to the Zero director to withdraw an objectionable scene and poster showing the kirpan as an ordinary dagger, and which is hurting Sikh sentiments. So So the PR company Spice had to basically address that and say that your concerns are duly noted, and we wish to respectfully clarify that the film does not depict a kirpan. There's more on there, but I don't necessarily need to get into it. So what did you guys think of the Zero trailer?
I want to know what you thought, Asim, because this is a movie that was made just for you.
It is, right? It has everything I like. It has Anushka, it has Katrina, it has Shah Rukh, it has all my loves together. I liked it. I mean, I think the trailer was quite revealing. I felt it told us too much of the plot than it was necessary. But it is also funny because a lot of the marketing of Zero is based on the idea that they're going into space, or there's some astronaut or some kind of space element to it. And that's the only part that they don't reveal. They just kind of tease it with that final shot of the spaceship going up. I don't know. I think Anand L. Rai, he's being lauded as this great filmmaker of small-time movies that really work, and I don't know if that reputation is entirely justified. His movies are fine for me. They're not life-affirming or changing the way I watch movies or anything like that. And he has a solid track record, and I am happy to see that Shah Rukh is moving away from his regular coterie of collaborators, which he's been doing for a while now. It's not really worked out for him as well, because I do think Shah Rukh is trying to find his foothold back on Be the Biggest Star, which honestly he's not been for the last few years. So he's really trying to do that, which I applaud. But I think it almost brings me back to our review of Paheli, where he tries to work with new filmmakers and these new ideas, but his need to be loved, to be a star, is just so strong that it just becomes like ek pair idhar, ek pair udhar, it's just the movie just becomes nothing in a way. I'm still not sold on the VFX of Bau, or whatever he's called, the little... Bawa. Yeah. I hate the Twitter account they launched on Bawa. I do not like it at all. But again, I gave leniency to the VFX in Thugs, so I guess I need to give that leniency to Zero too. I love Katrina's mean Beyonce. That looks amazing. And I think Anushka Sharma will be going after Priyanka Chopra's Barfi disability crown in this movie. Priyanka Chopra played the best disabled person on Indian cinema, I think, on commercial cinema, and Anushka will be snatching that wig.
Pretty much.
So those are my thoughts on the Zero trailer.
So here's the thing, I have similar concerns to you in that, not that I don't think Anand L. Rai is a good filmmaker or anything, but I feel per Shah Rukh's track record, what happens is that people work with Shah Rukh and they end up making a Shah Rukh Khan film, whether they, whatever they were doing before, it doesn't matter. You've seen that with Imtiaz Ali, you've seen that with pretty much everybody except for Chuck Dane, which the director clearly was making his own vision, and Shah Rukh sort of adapted himself into it. I think the last 10 years Chuck Dane is the only such outlier that I can think of, but otherwise Rawan, Rais, all of it, all of that was impacted by Shah Rukh's stardom, if not his need to be loved, as Asim was saying. Whatever Anand L. Rai's reputation as a filmmaker, I feel eventually, because you can't, Shah Rukh's, when you're working with one of the three Khans, you can't ignore the fact that you're working with one of them, you can't, even if you set out to make whatever film it was that you're making, eventually when you come to market it, and when you try to sell it to an audience, the audience are going to always remember that this is a movie starring one of the Khans, whatever you might have thought. That's what happened with Chuck Day as well. Shah Rukh didn't do any serious promotion for that movie. It just appeared out of nowhere. And then everybody was like, oh yeah, this is a Shah Rukh Khan movie. Even though I have a feeling, in Shah Rukh's mind, that was a movie where he just had a glorified, a special appearance or something. because that's how he talked about it until like it became like this huge success, and then he was just like, wait, what happened here? You know.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I think. Sorry.
Go ahead, Sunny. Go ahead.
I think Shah Rukh Khan has what I call Amitabh Bachchan's 90s problem.
Yeah.
Because he's really got to the stage where he's too big a star, but he's also getting older. So he needs to reinvent himself. But in some ways, he's, how do you reinvent yourself? When you are Shah Rukh Khan and everybody wants to go see a movie with you, that's going to make them feel better. And, you're going to play Rahul again. Yeah. And I think that's a problem that happens with massive stars constantly, where they either have the choice of fading away or they end up having to do something that reinvents them. Now, Amitabh Bachchan was really successful, but he still spent a good 14 years in the woods doing pretty terrible movies. Yesterday somebody mentioned Ajuba on Twitter, and I mean, do you remember that one?
Was it Sujoy?
Was it Sujoy? I mean, you look at some of the stuff, and you look at the stuff in the 90s. It's abysmal. Now, so far, Shah Rukh has avoided the abysmal route. It's all been kind of pretty terrible movies, boring often, but it's not been awful yet. But I think he needs to think about where he's going to go. Of course, as Amrita said, he's got the star vehicle problem. Once you become that big, people want, directors will work with him, but it becomes about putting the star first. And it's a dilemma that unless you've got a really strong director who can basically ignore what Shah Rukh is going to do for himself and his star persona, we're stuck with it. So Chakde, and I think to a certain extent Swadesh, managed to give him work with him without taking over. But it's a tough one.
Dear Zindagi did a little bit too, I think.
Yeah, but I think somebody really needs to take him and not give quarter to his stardom. But then flip side is you end up with the Chakde problem where it doesn't go off and become the big blockbuster because the filmmakers stuck to their vision. So it's, maybe in 10 years' time we'll see decent movies from Shah Rukh again.
Yeah, I think also with Shah Rukh's problem is that he himself was always uncomfortable with that romantic hero role that he got assigned to, Rahul Raj and all that. So he himself wanted to spoof it so much, and Farah Khan did the best spoof of his character in Om Shanti Om, and it can never be done anymore like that. He killed that spoof. And then when we are revisiting that character through other directors' eyes, we have something like Jab Harry Met Sally, which was also very much referential of, an older Raj Rahul kind of character. Yeah. It was terrible. That movie was terrible. And, if I have to diss a movie with Anushka Sharma in it, then how terrible must that movie be? What he needs is an Ali Abbas Zafar that understands Salman to the T and plays to the image and adds a little bit more, like he did in Sultan, like he did in Tiger, the second Tiger. And unfortunately, Shah Rukh doesn't have an Ali Abbas Zafar. So that's where I think Shah Rukh's problem lies at the moment.
And he doesn't have the courage of doing, and I know I never thought in the 90s I would be talking about this man as a possible model to consider. Akshay Kumar. Who managed to change, it's sort of, I remember looking at Padman and going, I'm not sure I can cope with Akshay Kumar doing this.
But it works. It works for a lot of people, right?
He's managed to reinvent it.
Yeah.
And I think Shah Rukh needs that courage. Yeah. And I think it's, as I said, he's got the Amitabh Bachchan problem.
No, I think with Akshay, he's just discovered that sweet spot where he'll never be an icon the way the three Khans are iconic. But he's super successful and he's maintained that success for an equally long time. So that sort of like frees him up to try like different things and take a few more risks without turning off his audience in a way that the Khans can't do, I think.
So, John, man, what did you think of the Zero trailer?
I really don't know what to think of the trailer. It's just mixed bag of random ideas thrown in the mix, and I think I don't know if I'll ever be able to make sense out of it. There's rockets flying, there's Anushka on the chair, and there's Katrina, and there's Salman somewhere, and then...
Oh yeah, Salman's in it too, yeah.
Yeah. See, everybody forgot about the Salman cameo.
Salman is in it, Aamir's height is in it, right?
Yeah. Oh, so somebody made a mean joke about it on Twitter saying Team Zero wasted so much money on VFX when they could have just hired Aamir.
Oh, gosh.
I just want to say that I make fun of Aamir all the time, and that joke is too mean even for me. I just want to say.
So somebody also posted pictures of Aamir after a spa treatment or something. They just paparazzi took some pictures, and they shrunk Aamir even further.
I'll be honest, nobody can look good in those chappals and shorts. Like, it's impossible.
Yeah.
Not even Kareena Kapoor can.
This is a fair point. But there's a part of me that saw that trailer and the rocket blast off, and I was kind of hoping that they would go out and it's kind of a zero gravity sex scene, but then I realized it was Shah Rukh and it would never happen.
But now, like, Katrina is the only woman Shah Rukh has kissed on screen, like, twice. Like, you know?
But technically, Katrina kissed him in this one.
I like the technical.
I watched it many times, clearly. We're all projecting our small-time dreams on this movie.
There you go.
Talking about Akshay, what did people think of the 2.0 trailer?
Let's go to Sujoy first. I want to hear from Sujoy because I think this might be more his jam than anybody else's jam.
I am a big fan of the first robot movie. Okay, it's just balls out bonkers, full of ideas and Michael Bay can do Transformers. Let's look at this, and it's one of those movies that is more popular in Reddit culture where all these GIFs are being made and people just circulate those because like they will look at it and see that there's nothing else like it. I think Robot 2.0 will be a step further, and Shankar is going to go completely balls out on all the tricks that he's got up his sleeve. I'm really looking forward to it because he's probably the only sort of massy South Indian movie that makes movies in this genre, and I'm actually glad to see Akshay not saving the nation for a while, And thank God this is not another Akshay PSA movie. Right. But yeah, I'm really glad that 2.0 is finally releasing after all this delay.
Sunny, did you get a chance to watch it?
Yeah, I mean it's hilarious. It's all of the stuff that we need. But it's also sometimes I always wonder if like Robot, this is sort of, it's made for every IIT geek out there. And I think there's space for it. There's room for it. I think it's again a star vehicle, so it really works with Rajni as the man and the star. So it's going to get that audience. But I'm always sort of, I wish again he would go off and do something more interesting. And I love it, but it also goes, oh boy. But also finally the CGI thing, it's just insane. My favorite thing has been like taking cell phones away from Indians. It's like the ultimate trauma.
Or the ultimate gift.
Yeah, just ban WhatsApp groups. I think that'll be
ban parents from WhatsApp.
It kind of reminds me all the cell phones assimilating and forming the larger monster. It kind of reminds me of Big Hero 6, where all the smaller magnets just assemble together, like nano robots or something.
Yeah.
I've not seen Big Hero 6, I think.
What?
Unfortunately. Yeah. Amrita, thoughts on the 2.0 thing?
I'll watch it. Like, it's not like I won't watch it.
Such an enthusiastic response. I'll watch it.
I mean, it's going to be a pop culture event, right? Like, it's going to be something that whether you're interested in it or not, whether you think the trailer is good or not, everyone's going to go watch it. Everyone's going to talk about it. So,
what do you reckon? What happened to Aishwarya Rai?
I don't think anybody cares. Like, I don't think Rajinikanth cares. I don't think his audience cares. It's unfortunate, but I don't think. I think except like people that like, take their time on just posting shots of Aishwarya in movies. I don't think anybody else cares about Aishwarya. Unfortunately, I mean, I don't want to be disrespectful or anything like that, but I don't think she has any pull left.
No, but it's not Aishwarya in particular. I think it's just the way movies like these are designed. The female leads are always interchangeable. Like, there's no such thing as like, we must have her and she must come back or else this movie will never work. Of course it'll work.
Also, I don't think the character that was with Aishwarya is he in the movie? Because it just seems like the robot is in the movie. No. Is he the other one is in it?
Yeah, the professor is rebooting.
Is he?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I'll just give my quick thoughts because I know we're running late and we want to go to Thugs, which is important to talk about. So for me, Rajinikanth, I don't get it. I don't get him. For me, his movies... His movies are 1/3 of his movies are references I don't understand of his previous movies, which I have not watched. 1/3 is of the movie is co-starring with a female lead that is way too young, that is beyond creepy, and then 1/3 is just nonsense that I don't understand. So I think, and this is very much in line with everything I see in the 2.0 trailer. I'm gonna watch it. And I'm probably not going to get it. So I'm still not even sold on Robot. I don't get the fan following. I don't understand it.
Like, to all the listeners of the podcast who are right now very, very offended that Asim does not get it. Like, I did not grow up on Rajinikanth. Probably the only sort of pop culture reference to Rajinikanth is Hum and probably Andha Kanun, like the two Hindi movies that I remember. And I still buy into his superstardom. I don't know why. It's just the swag that he carries, even when he's like 70 plus years old.
Basically, what Sujoy is saying is, when you come to beat up Asim, please leave him alone.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
I'm saving my ass.
I will just say, masal dekha hai, masal ke rakh dunga.
He's a major star. I know his movies from earlier, and he's worked with lower budgets than, let's say, Bachchan had in the 70s and 80s. But this guy he's got a kind of fanatic fan following in parts of the world.
I don't want to dismiss it.
I think it's worth thinking about it. Why he doesn't? It's actually quite interesting to think about why he doesn't work the same way further north, the way he does in South India. So, but yeah. There you go.
I must say, also, like Sujoy, I loved him in the 80s when he was in Bollywood. I loved Rajinikanth. His death as Inspector Hussain in Giraftar messed me up. I have traumas about it still today. It is one of the most amazing things, and when I saw him flick that cigarette, I went crazy. So it's not that I didn't get Rajinikanth then, I don't get this Rajinikanth now. Like, I don't get, like, maybe, there was just too much of a disconnect between, like, the 30 years where he became this Rajinikanth. But, all respect, I don't want to disrespect anybody's love for the star. I'm just, like, saying what, I just don't get it, Explain, let's say it this way. It's an invitation to explain Rajinikanth to me instead of me insulting Rajinikanth. Let's do it that way, yeah? Good.
Okay, let's move on to our main event.
Main review, Thugs of Hindostan. So, Amrita, you have not watched this movie yet, so A, you will only be providing snark, and B, you might have to leave a bit early, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But I just want to say that it is a testament to our friendship and our podcast that we have now managed to unite the three people who love this movie in an unironic way.
It is weird, isn't it?
The only three people.
There's
who have
only
watched
three
this
people
movie.
on the internet that like this movie, and they're all on this podcast.
Yeah, that works.
I just want our audience to appreciate this for a second, and
The amount of research we had to do, and like the cosmic alignment that was needed for this moment to happen. But before we get into anybody's thoughts, I want to know, Amrita,
Yes.
you have not seen this movie. What
No.
do you think this movie is about, or what do you think happens in this movie?
Okay, so first of all, to all those people who are sitting out there, like, of course, Amrita didn't watch this movie. Amrita is like a hater. I want to say, like, that's not why. I just decided to go on a short vacation, and that's why I didn't watch this movie, because I was in an unfamiliar part of the country, and nobody wanted to watch this movie with me. Otherwise, I would have watched it. And I intended to watch it. And I will watch it at some point, because, you know, Asim Sujoy and Sunny tell me it's a very nice film. Sorry, I didn't mean to laugh. So, okay, what do I think Thugs of Hindostan is about? I don't think it's about thugs. I think it's some sort of like pirate knockoff. Amitabh is the leader of some sort of freedom fighting thing. And what's her name? Fatima?
Fatima Sana Shaikh.
Fatima Sana Shaikh. Choose a name. And she is she's a warrior. And then the British bring Aamir to be their inside man and sort of sabotage and inform against the Indians who are like causing all this trouble. But then, like, Aamir gets caught out by Amitabh, and I would imagine he switches sides at the end because he has to be the hero, right? And he can't be a hero if he just sides with the British to the end. So that's what I think is happening in this film. Am I right?
You could have written the movie pretty much.
Yeah. That's pretty good. That works.
I got all of this from the trailer, by the way.
By the way, who is editing movie trailers in Bollywood, right?
Nobody, man. Nobody edits.
Nobody
edits. They just, like, jo chalta hai, bas laga do bhai. Like, aa jayenge log, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, just smack some basic outline together, and it's out. Off it goes.
Yeah. So, Sunny, let's go to you, because I think you wrote a few positive words, but it was quite short. So I want to dig in a bit deeper on what your thoughts were on Thugs of Hindostan.
Right. Well, do you know what? I went in having looked at some of the reviews, and I'm not a big fan of most Bollywood reviewers, but so sorry out there. I should probably apologize for saying that.
Offense taken, Sunny.
Yes, but I should probably say, you know, think people who write for things like Hindustan Times and India Today, and it's just sort of there's this kind of, we know cinema, and we are going to now take the stance. And I work on popular culture, so I went in going, it can't be that bad. And I have seen a lot of bad Amitabh Bachchan movies. So, I'm up there going, and I was pleasantly surprised, actually, to be very honest. I had seen the trailer. I was, to be fair, expecting a masala movie. I wasn't expecting it to be sort of the great cerebral Aamir Khan thing that he does. Yeah. Which for me was quite nice, because I'm a little bit tired of Aamir being, Mr. Cerebral, I shall save India and Indian film industry from itself. So I was actually quite looking forward to Aamir not doing that. And it kind of delivered on that premise. It's a fun movie. It's a masala film. It's what Amrita said. You watch the trailer, it's a masala movie. And for me, it worked kind of the way the sort of classic 70s masala movies work. So, there's certain things that happen. It's going to happen. How they're going to get to the end. Aamir's got to be the good guy. He's got to change sides. We know this one. But so the issue isn't kind of saying, what will happen, but how will it happen? And the pleasure comes from kind of going, this was fun. And, it happened the right way. I think the sort of simplistic Pirates of the Caribbean, because, hey, it's got a ship and it's got a sort of slightly campy Aamir Khan, are unjustified. For me, it was more it was a mishmash, or it sort of went back to things like Dharamveer.
Yeah.
Anyone remember that?
Yeah.
So Joy does.
It was that fun element of it.
Yeah.
Which worked nicely. I know people were upset that Katrina didn't get more screen time, but I couldn't see where she'd fit in. So that was also, it was kind of like, she had that, she was a bit like Zinat Aman in Hum Kisi Se Kam Nahi, where, she's great, but she really has no part to play. And if you're a fan of hers, you're just like, can you bring her in? But if you're not...
She's like cinnamon in a dish. You put a sprinkle on it,
yes.
But if it's too much cinnamon, the dish is only tasting of cinnamon, and then you have a cinnabun. So,
yes, I think that's a fair way of thinking about it.
Sorry, I cut you off with a stupid joke.
No, it's not a stupid joke. It's exactly it. I didn't see where she would fit. Yeah. I have to say, I was quite happy with the fact they kind of harkened back to the 70s masala movies in terms of the women. Right. So when they do have that final, the first and the only meeting between Katrina and Fatima Sana Shaikh, you didn't get into, oh no, we're fighting over a man. They just kind of go, well, we've got other things to worry about, which was quite nice because it reminded me of sort of older, Kranti and all of that kind of stuff where women aren't fighting each other. Yeah. I also like the fact that they kind of ended off with the Fatima Sana Sheikh's character going, yeah, well, maybe I might miss the guy at the end. Am I giving away spoilers now?
I think we care? Yeah, I don't think anybody cares at this point.
I mean, it's Bollywood. There are no spoilers at Bollywood. But I like that. She kind of goes, yeah, well, I still got a revolution to organize and my kingdom to manage. Yeah. And I thought that was quite a clever way of not going down the typically, oh, look, the dancer dies and sacrifices herself so the good girl can take over. And I thought those were nice touches. Yeah. I also want a sequel where the three of them, Katrina Kaif, Aamir Khan, and Mohammad Zeeshan Ayyub arrive in England and steal like Kohinoor from Tower of London.
That would be so good.
Need it.
That would be such a good movie.
That to happen.
Yeah, like because Katrina could be like a white girl, like a British lady, and then she could enter it. It would be so cool.
Yeah.
She would be like Agent Carter.
Then you get the tugs, the other day with her ship kind of going out. And can you imagine the sword fights on the ramparts of Tower of London?
It would be so
brilliant.
Cool. And this would be actually like Katrina playing to, the strength of her image that people are saying, oh, she can't speak Hindi, she can't do this. So she's actually like fully embraced. It would be so cool. So Joy, man, your thoughts on Thugs of Hindostan?
Yeah, I saw it with you.
Yes, you did.
And as you know, I quite frankly, surprisingly, it was very, very enjoyable. Although I know that it's not going to win any awards for original scripts or original ideas, but it's thoroughly, densely entertaining. I did not feel bored for a single minute because it's got so many things happening to its characters, to the events that are happening to these characters, and it moves from set piece to set piece in a very brisk pace. But also, I do realize that it has some flaws, and it could have done a lot of things better. So, people keep complaining and sort of comparing it with Pirates of the Caribbean, but having thought of it after having watched it, I don't think it goes anywhere in that territory. The kind of movie that it reminds me is. Do you remember Kevin Costner's Waterworld?
Yeah.
And there is this review that Roger Ebert wrote about Waterworld saying it is a decent futuristic action picture with some great sets, some intriguing ideas, and a few images that will stay with me. And it could have been more, it could have been better, and it could have made me care about the characters. But you are ultimately not unhappy to have seen it.
Yeah, that's a good comparison, Waterworld. Yeah,
it sums up the essence of what I felt after watching Thugs of Hindostan. It could have been better in the way it treated its characters, or the core storyline of why I should root for these characters, for especially Zafira, who is the heroine of this movie. But I didn't necessarily see her grow, or I didn't necessarily find a reason to root for her, which I think is the failure of the movie. But other than that, I watched Dharamveer yesterday just to remind myself of the vibe. and I was taken back to that era when I was watching Thugs of Hindostan. It's completely an homage to the era of Manmohan Desai, and I love it for that.
Yeah, I'm a huge Manmohan Desai fan. I think he's one of the single most underrated filmmakers in the world. This anything that's Manmohan Desai will work for me, and this was such a great homage for it. I also liked all the little bits of Bachchan kind of star knowledge that we have, complete with the hawk from Coolie. It's like, but Coolie, he was really in your face.
The bracelet from Diwar, the get-up from Eklavya. Or even, there's a lot of these things that touches.
I've got a question. Does the hawk or the eagle in this movie have a name?
No, it doesn't. But having the hawk there and him being called Khuda Baksh, sort of your mind automatically makes the links
to Allah Rakha.
It just sort of happens, and the bracelet, it makes the link, even though it doesn't say Billah number Sat Sochiasi.
I wonder
this is the fan speaking.
I wonder how Amitabh feels when he's cast in movies like this, and they're like, why don't you cosplay yourself? But
he hates it.
30 years ago.
He's made a few mentions that he hates it, but he's now embraced it because all of the filmmakers want him to do that because they grow up on his movies. But I mean, it's not as egregious as Buddha Hoga Tera Baap, It's not like anything like that, but it's definitely in there. Okay, my thought. So I wrote a huge ass thread on Twitter. So if you want to, I think even I pinned it. So if you want to get my general thoughts on Thugs, just go to Asim Verni on Twitter. But what I kind of wanted to say is, so these 3-4 directors came in Bollywood around the same time. So, and I slot them together. So you have Shrish Kandar, Farah Khan, and Vijay Krishna Acharya. They all had their movies kind of come in the same time. They all work in these very big produced meta-narrative masala movies that are seeped into the mythology of Bollywood. And all of them are unable to make small-scale movies. And the thing is that the problem with us is that we don't get meta narratives. That's why Tashan fails. Unless the meta narrative is very much ingrained in Bollywood templates like Om Shanti Om is, or even Mehuna is, So, and this is where Vijay Krishna Acharya's issues start. Because I was just watching Dhoom 3 yesterday to kind of prepare for this. I don't need to watch Tashan because 100 baar dekhi, 20 baar dekhi, mere baap ne likhi hai, Sunny, by the way, there's this theme that we always put an andaz apna quote in the podcast, and somebody also sings, so that's still going to happen. You're very welcome to sing a tune later on.
I definitely cannot sing, but
No, nobody can sing. We just sing. So, and this is where the issue starts for Vijay Krishna Acharya, because he's A, making an Aamir movie, he's B, making another movie for Yash Raj, and Yash Raj wants two things. Yash Raj wants to have another Bahubali, and Yash Raj wants this to be a very, very big success in China. And maybe you guys watched this Film Companion Dissect video about the success that Aamir Khan has in China, and they were kind of mentioning numbers that Dangal made 1,200 crores in China. So what does it matter if Thugs of Hindostan doesn't make 100 crore in 3 days when 1,200 200 crores can be made in China, right?
Exactly.
These are two things. And in China, apparently they call Aamir Khan, and I know Amrita will cringe when she hears. Hold on to something. They call him male god.
Yeah.
Oh.
Wait. But what is it called in Chinese?
I don't know.
It's called Nanshen, which to me is amazing because now I just call him Nanshen because that's the perfect name for him.
At least it's an upgrade from Mamu, right? So Secret Superstar made 753 crores. It made more money than Black Panther and Last Jedi. And I think the problem is, so clearly Yash Raj wanted to make a pirates movie, and I think that's where the problems start for this movie, because the ultimate failure is the marketing department and setting the wrong expectations for this movie. It's not a pirates movie. It's much more a kind of what Sunny was mentioning, an old school masala, swords and sandals, cheel and bars kind of movie. And that's where the problems start, because they didn't market it. Even if you look at the posters, they are very much like a Chinese blockbuster movies like Wolf Brigade or, like these kind of like mythological where they're standing. Even the filters they're using, the color hues, the color palettes they're using, it's very much for China. And I think that's where the problem is, because Vijay Krishna Acharya wants to make very much Bollywood movies. And the other thing that you can also, that summarizes what this movie is the casting of Katrina Kaif. And everybody knows my love for Katrina Kaif. It's near, and I must say, because people are unclear about this, my love for all of women is devotional. It's religious. It's not like I love my wife. All my real love is for my wife. This is more like a devotional love for these ladies, which are like screen goddesses. So, if you want to make a period movie in the 19th, 18th century, who is the logical choice to play an Urdu-speaking courtesan? In Vijay Krishna Acharya's mind, it's Katrina Kaif. And this is where, like, I was watching Dhoom 3 the other day, right? And Dhoom 3 is very much influenced by Prestige, right? Christopher Nolan's Prestige. Also, there's a lot of Dark Knight in there too. But the movie Prestige deals with these twins, and it's about magicians, illusionists, right? But Vijay Krishna Acharya decides, we need them to be clowns. we need this movie to be set in a circus.
Obviously.
Yeah, and this is the kind of filmmaker he is. And this is the kind of filmmaker Shrish Kundar is. And this is the kind of filmmaker Farah Khan is. And I unfortunately feel there's a disconnect with the audiences, because a lot of the criticism that I've been seeing is that Vijay Krishna Acharya is a shit director. And that is just not true. He is a clear director with a unique vision, with a point of view, and he knows what he wants to do. Unfortunately, in Thugs of Hindostan, he's been bogged down by the ambitions of Yash Raj as a studio.
I think you might have a point, but I think there's something else to be said. And I think the China market is a really important one. There is a kind of idea that Hollywood makes films for everybody, which they don't, let's be honest, right? But Bollywood makes films, they put us first. It's about they make movies for us. But what if they make movies for kind of like Hollywood, going, you know what? We'll see where it sells. And you know what? If China's going to make us 12,000 crores, then maybe 300 crores or 100 crores at home can be set aside. So there is, I think, again, that issue of, where we think things sell. But also it's a really interesting one because it connects to something that happens in the movie itself. We're very much a post-colonial nation, and strangely enough, Bollywood has been more aggressive in its post-coloniality than a lot of our audiences, but especially the more, let's say, people who comment on popular culture and film. So, all these wonderful East India Company white officers all speak Urdu. And Actually, I've got a copy of Hobbs and Jobson sitting on my desk right now. And very few people remember this. It's actually it's a dictionary of phonetic Urdu. So there's things like one of my favorites is there was a brown crow. If you break that sentence down and say it in a Hindi way, it's darwaza band karo. And there's a whole series of it. So these were men who in late 18th century, prior to the British Empire taking over, had to communicate. And there is, and I think this is quite an interesting idea of making white characters speak Urdu, because you're just kind of like, you know what, we know you might speak English. I mean, it's sort of going back and thinking of things like Die Hard. Why do the terrorists speak in English? Right?
That's a good one.
Yeah. It's an interesting way to think about it. And I found that really intriguing, because I think they're moving forward. And Yash Raj Studio, I agree on the marketing, they got it wrong. But they're looking at markets, they're looking at spaces that are competitive, that are open to Indian cinema, and are for the taking in some ways. So, I think we need to somewhere also start thinking about how these films work globally, rather than just looking at it from, they're meant for us, that kind of idea, and getting disappointed when we aren't the only focus of such movies.
Amrita, I know you need to leave, right? Do you have any final thoughts? Did my diatribe make you more excited to watch Thugs of Hindostan?
Intellectually, I feel like you have a point, but having watched the movies that Vijay Krishna Acharya has made, I have to disagree, because the way I felt about those movies are very different.
Dosti khatam, Amrita.
Well, fair enough.
It can't be done, man. Like, they were they're definite, I see the point you're trying to make between VK and Farah Khan and Shirish Kundar, but I feel like if you had left it at Shirish Kundar, then औकात की बात होती. But now when you compare him to Farah Khan, I feel like you just overstepped and destroyed that argument. But there's definite sequences in Tashan that I thought were super funny, but I don't know if it was funny because he made them, or it was funny because he entrusted those scenes to Akshay Kumar, who can basically sell anything comedy wise. And who does really well in these Farah Khan, Shirish Kundar type movies as well. But coming to this movie, none of you are talking about how Aamir and Amitabh work together, which to me is very surprising.
Do you know the funny thing is, the first thing I thought of when they were the first, there's that scene with when Aamir Khan joins Bachchan in pulling that, plowing that field, the fallow field. And I kept going, how the hell did they shoot it? Is there how did they get him to be so tall? How did Aamir Khan get to be so tall? And which is a terrible thing, but I was completely fascinated by the technical aspects of it. I'm going, how did you make him kind of stand shoulder to shoulder when he probably comes to his not even chest? But it was strange, because with Mohabbatein, or not Mohabbatein, Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gham, there's a kind of energy that happens. There's a kind of sexy, back and forth between Shah Rukh and Bachchan, and maybe it's linked to their egos and their star statuses. Somehow that was missing for me.
I also I think the issue is with Aamir not having this kind of hero persona. What is Aamir's Shah Rukh is the romantic lead, Salman is Salman. What is Aamir? In a way, he makes great movies. And on the other hand, you have The Angry Young Man. So that mashing together of these two legends, what they want to do. And they do take a beat. There's a beat in the movie where they're kind of circling each other on the ship before they start fighting together. But because also the Aamir Firangi Malla is so much the Rangila kind of character, the Andaz Apna Apna kind of fast-talking, scam artist kind of thing. I don't even necessarily feel this is the role of Aamir that we know, Amitabh is, he is the angry man that is now an older statesman. So this is Amitabh. But what is Aamir's image? Yeah. So those images kind of clashes when one is weaker than the other. And I think Mohabbat is a good example because Shah Rukh is playing that lover. He's playing that lover that lost his love, and clashing with this elder statesman. So that clash worked, where I don't know if Aamir has that. I don't know if this was the movie that they should have maybe gotten them two together. Maybe Salman should have done it. Maybe Akshay should have done it.
No.
Yeah, I was looking at the making of the movie and how Aamir keeps emphasizing this is the movie that, fortunately he's working with Amitabh Bachchan and sharing the same screen space with him. And it just doesn't, cinematically, it just doesn't translate into anything magnificent.
Yeah. Amrita, you need to log off, right? You need to leave us?
Yes, I do. Sunny, it was lovely to talk to you, and I'm so sorry I need to run off. Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, Amrita.
Right, so we were talking about those images kind of getting together, right? So, I think there's an issue there, and although the other issue that I really have is with the Fatima Sana Shaikh character in this movie. I think she's badly written. First of all, I think Sujoy mentioned this earlier, but I also think she's badly shot.
Yes.
There's this scene where she's doing this rousing speech to kind of get the troops together, and she's shot with this low angle camera, which I just don't understand why they did that. It was such a bad choice to make as a filmmaker, and because she doesn't feel convinced of what she's doing or what's going on. It just seems weak. And it's very unfortunate. And I also just think it's bad casting. It's bad casting to cast her opposite Aamir so close after Dangal. This is the second release, and I understand these are actors and we shouldn't assign roles to them, and a point I was making at the start of the podcast, so I'm completely breaking down this point, but it is weird to have and I think also because it's weird and the filmmakers felt it, they kind of lessened maybe her role, or they edited around the love story between. There is some sort of inclination that there is, Fatima's character has some feelings towards Aamir's character, which they couldn't really commit to because they just played daughter and son in the previous movie. So it's a very odd choice, and I think unfortunately it's if she was badly shot, and if she had a bad line, but she was such a mega star with star presence, she could sell it would be fine. But unfortunately, Fatima Sana Shaikh doesn't bring this to the table, and her being the mockingbird character, her being the Princess Bride character, if she doesn't deliver there, it makes the whole idea of the movie much, much weaker, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I mean,
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
To add to that, I was watching Dharamveer and how things come full circle in that movie. Everything, gets together in the end. To compare that with what happens with Fatima Sana Sheikh's character Zafira in this movie, we get her backstory, the revenge angle, and how she sees her world being destroyed in front of her own childish eyes, and she can't lift that sword. It doesn't come full circle for her for her to take revenge, and that's an epic moment that they foreshadow that she can't lift the sword, and there is no heavy sword lifting in there, and it just becomes this moment of Clive is the Ravan in this movie, and we have to go with the Dasera theme, instead, which doesn't really feel, cohesive in the narrative, and there is no the love that Khuda Baksh has for Zafira. We get to see that in that Lori sequence when he's trying to console her because of her nightmares and stuff. But we don't get to see how she became that badass.
Yeah.
We are supposedly, just left to assume that she's now this mockingbird character,
I love that scene though. Amitabh is so good. He has nothing to play with, but he just uses his eyes when he's, singing that Lori, that lullaby to her, and it's just, oh my god, Amitabh is so good when he can, be Amitabh. Those eyes.
My Amitabh moment in this movie is, I don't know, it's very simplistic, but when he's just grinding his own teeth and just moves his head in slow motion, it just reminds me of Tiger.
Yeah.
I think one of the scenes that was, again, underwritten and they could have done more with it is actually right at the end, when you see the Zafira character sort of post-Clive being killed, suddenly break down. And there is that, again, it was so poorly shot. And basically, Amitabh just kind of looks at her and then she composes herself again.
Yeah.
And it could have been such a powerful scene, but it's so poorly shot.
Yeah.
Where you just go, well, come on, you there was something to play with and you lost it.
Yeah. And even that Baba scene where she's screaming Baba and all that kind of thing, it just...
Yeah.
There's some really, really bad decisions that they made, and I think a lot of those bad decisions are compounded in the second half of the movie, where I actually thought the first half was quite fun, because the first half is pretty much one action set piece after the other. There's almost no dialogue, and then the Suraya comes on, which is amazing. Again, another issue with, and I mentioned this to Sujoy when we were watching it, that they should have just blasted everywhere with Suraya. The song is so fun and so good, but the choreography is very, very different, and people just don't expect it. When they come into a movie, they don't expect this kind of choreography, but understanding how amazing it is and how good Katrina Kaif is at doing Prabhu Deva choreography, which is, he's like an amazing dancer, right? Like, I said this in my Twitter thread, I don't think anybody has done this as good since Hrithik Roshan in Main Aisa Kyun Hu, and Katrina doing this is amazing, and because it's so jarring, people will just feel, oh wait, this is just weird, and the song is already over, there's a chase scene, a comedic thing, and like, I want to rewatch Suraya and I can't, it's not available on YouTube, so it's ridiculous, it's a stupid notion.
Agreed. And by the way, just, oh my God, Katrina's core strength on that. I had my jaw drop going, okay, this is a level of core strength that none of us who are just human beings as opposed to superhuman can achieve.
I don't even know how a body can move that way. Like, I thought they had reversed some yoga poses to make her stand back up, but I watched the making of Suraya, and she's actually doing these things. So I don't know how much Pilates she does, but it's amazing to watch. It's amazing.
Yeah, and again, you're right. I mean, that should have been blasted everywhere instead of sort of holding back. And it's such a great song. It's a fun song, but it needs people to have seen it a few times
and get used to it. Yeah.
I think they kind of, Yash Raj went old school and did not, reveal all their cards, just like they did with Kajrare back in the day with Bunty Bubbly. But I don't know if that sort of strategy works today.
No, I think they wanted to do Didi Tera Devar Divana more than anything.
Possibly.
Go watch it in the theaters, the rest, and it didn't work at all, unfortunately. And the other issue is also that I have is that this never works. This has not worked in Hollywood. Why would it work in Bollywood? Is do not set up the sequel if you've not worked on the kinks in the first movie, Don't bank on the sequel when you're just like horribly messed up the box office now. And this also happened with Jagga Jasoos to a certain degree, right? Where there was a tag at the ending, and now I'm just like feel disillusioned that I'm not going to be able to watch this. Like Jagga Jasoos, there's no hope there's going to be a sequel. I hope China saves us at least for Thugs of Hindostan, because I want to see Katrina Kaif as Agent Carter in England and like rip off British people.
I know, and I mean it's just such a shame because it's and yet it could have been. It's not a movie. Now I have to say I'm an Amitabh Bachchan fan plus a scholar. I managed to watch Lavaris. I've watched Lavaris nearly 300 times, if not more.
Wow!
I know it's a level of fandom that is insane. I managed to go through 2 of the old VHS cassettes. So this movie is not going to be a Lavares for me, where I'm going to watch it or an Amaragor Anthony, where I can put it on and at any given time. Which is a shame because it could have very well been a movie like that.
Yeah.
As of now, it's a fun romp. It's great fun to go watch. If you go with friends, it's going to be, a good laugh. But it could have been much more.
Yeah.
And that, for me, is the disappointment.
Yeah. I mean, you're going old school, but it's not even a khaki. It's not even a sarkar.
Yeah.
It's not even an ek ajnabi in terms of Amitabh roles, right? So, that's kind of a shame. I think they dropped the ball there. But I don't know if you guys have been following, like, the glee that people have with the failure of this movie.
Yeah.
And it's something that I don't understand, and it seems to be a lot of it is coming from Shah Rukh Khan fans. Like, Shah Rukh Khan fans so pagal ho gaye bilkul. Like, why, how much they're enjoying that an Aamir Khan movie has failed, I just don't understand. Have you guys been following that a little bit, or not really?
No,
not really. I mean, I don't really do fandom, so it's not my area. But it's been coming through my Twitter feed every X amount of time.
Yeah.
And I found that quite sad because there's a kind of an internal. Again, this is things these are narratives that we like to build, and we assume these are true. So the fans decide that there is this rivalry because there must be.
Yeah.
And there's all these other things that go on, and it's a shame because I think we miss out on great movies because we're so convinced. I mean, for me, I think one of the movies that Aamir did and sadly did not do as well as it could have was Mangal Pandey.
Yeah.
And again, there was this idea that, one, it was the whole Hindu-Muslim thing, but then there was this whole other thing around, how is he doing this?
Yeah.
And it's so sad because I had people saying, oh, we didn't go see it because it was so poorly, it was slated so badly.
And I liked Mangal Pandey a lot too, actually.
It's a great movie. Yeah. I use it for class.
Yeah.
And it works really beautifully. In fact, there were shades of Mangal Pandey here.
Yeah.
In Tugs of Hindostan, and again, it could have been done better, but by this glee, we lose out on some good stuff.
Yeah, it's like Shah Rukh Khan fans have turned into Faisal Khan in Gangs of Wasseypur. They're like, Rais ka badla, jab barrier chale ka badla, fan ka badla lega tera Faisal. It's like that's become like that.
Oh yes, definitely. Do you know, one of the things I was thinking about is we should talk about the fact that this is the first Bachchan Bachchan Aamir Khan movie, but I was looking back and I can't remember Bachchan doing a Nasir Hussain movie back in the 70s. It was like they were in two different parts of the industry.
Right,
and that really is quite special to kind of have the two, if you want to call it, historic strands within the masala movie world come together.
He was kind of more of a Ritikesh Mukherjee guy, right?
Yeah. I mean, he did the Desais and he did Prakash Mehra. He did all these movies, but he was never quite part of that whole. I can't remember any Nasir Hussain that production that came through. I mean, this. And I found that really, and of course he did the Hrishikesh Mukherjee and all the second, the sort of the art house, if you want to call it, stuff as well, or the lower budget serious stuff. But it's quite that makes this movie quite special as from a kind of a film history point of view as well.
It's funny because when you go back and you start noticing these things, like we were doing the Dil To Pagal Hai podcast the other time, and it's the only movie that Yash Chopra did with Madhuri. And you would think that Madhuri would be the quintessential Yash Chopra heroine, but she only did one movie with them. Yeah. He did tons with Sridevi and Juhi Chawla. So it's just weird, like how these...
Same with Karisma Kapoor, right?
Yeah.
That's the only movie that they did with Karisma Kapoor.
Yeah. It's funny. It's funny.
It's kind of fun. Opens up all kinds of ideas of like, what else is going on in the studio systems?
Yeah.
So we've briefly talked about Suraya. What did you guys think about the rest of the soundtrack?
I mean, Sunny, maybe did you have?
Well, I think they should have actually released the Suraya number alongside Vashmale.
Yeah.
Because I think Vashmale's song is fun. But, it's a kind of a boy song. It reminded me of Das Bahane in some ways.
All right.
Okay.
Oh, Das Bahane is good.
Exactly. And you can kind of see that sort of Bachchan, steps are going to get replicated at all the,
They still look so cool, though. Like, he does look so
totally.
well.
And they're going to be like
I want to jump on screen and dance with them. Like, that slow thing he does now.
Yes.
That's probably
makes it look cool.
Yeah.
He just makes it look cool.
Yeah.
And I think that was really interesting. I found the final number. I like the way the Manzoor Khuda setup, because it's sort of parvaresh and it's the old school. This is the big.
The big final climax Banjara number.
Yeah, exactly. It's the Banjara number. It's the. You remember the last bit in Yama Yama and Shan? It's that kind of feel, and some of it is really beautifully done with that big, all the flames and the kind of that slight referencing of Beyonce and Get Information. But then it sort of loses it's the way it's shot. It doesn't have that huge grandeur that it should have had.
Yeah.
And it's a bit sad, because I think there was, it's just they just made wrong technical choices.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I'm not sure I'm okay with her, Katrina's little silver hot pants thing. I just felt that was, that kind of cut down on what, could have been done, even though it was a very brave and interesting choice. But it just didn't quite work in that space.
Right.
It kind of reminded me of Silk Smitha for some reason.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Especially
very much.
because they're making her slide on her knees after that, which is like it's it's weird. It's funny because I love the Dhadak soundtrack that these guys did. They're called Ajay Atul. I love the Dhadak soundtrack, and I love what they did with Suraya. And it's such a different sound from anything we've heard. I love it. I love Suraya. And I love that they had a lot of songs sung by Vishal Dadlani, which I like his voice, and because he doesn't sing all the time, it always feels fresh when he does. So I kind of like that too. I like the picturization of Vashmalde, and that Das Bahane is a good one. Also, I thought of Saw Tarake from Dishum, where they're like singing in a Taliban cave. It felt that way. It also reminded me of those cave scenes in the Matrix Reloaded movie, where they're like jamming in the cave.
The Zion Rave Party.
Yeah, that one. So it was, and I like the grandeur of, but. Yeah, they just didn't market it enough, and I think the one jam that they had, Suraya, they didn't market it well, so it's unfortunate. Yeah. There weren't that many songs, only 4, right? So again, Dhadak only had 4 songs too. So which, when you think of Bollywood movies that are 3 hours long, you would think they would have more songs in it, and it's only 4. So
I mean, I think I think the way they brought in the lori, the lullaby into the Manzoor was nicely done. So there was probably another version of it somewhere, which was cut out. The one thing I did want to mention, by the way, was the dialogue. The dialogue had me. I mean, I'm as I said, UP Bihar. It had me in giggles. It just the whole way through I was in giggles.
I must say that when I see movies like this, I miss Kadir Khan writing these dialogues.
It's not Kadir Khan enough.
It's not Kadir Khan enough. We need that kind of bombastic, like hus beta hus, that kind of thing. And that kind of we don't have a writer like that. And Amitabh almost needs that with his voice, with his presence. And I think that's where we kind of miss a beat, unfortunately, just because we don't have that level of talent anymore. One thing I did about the music, because before we move on, I love the background score, and especially the background theme of Aamir, because they use this kind of low-level cello that they're using. I just kind of loved it. It was very, very different. Like I like that. I like that thing.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, the background score on this was great. But going back to the dialogue thing, I think you're right. But because you know what, all the giggles came from Aamir's dialogues.
Yeah.
And it would have been a great moment if you had somebody who could do Bachchan's to heighten that contrast.
Yeah.
And that didn't happen. But whoever, the guy who wrote the dialogues for Aamir, full marks. Just that use of very colourful Hindustani and very kind of East UP, Bihar. And all the little proverbs and idiom was just hilarious. Very cleverly done.
I probably missed a lot of those cues, but I did. I did really enjoy it, and I did like also that when they free Amitabh again, he's like basically saying like, "Please stop talking." Just stop talking.
Yeah.
Any other things we want to mention about the movie? Because I think we're running a bit long, so I don't want to bore our audiences, especially if it's a movie that they don't agree on and they think is terrible.
Go watch this movie.
I think go watch the movie. Watch the movie. Forget about what you've heard read in the press or you've seen on Twitter. Just go watch the movie. Yeah. It's fun.
And it's not as bad as Race 3. Like, it's not as bad as Race 3, and it's not as bad as Happy New Year. You know? It's...
Ganga Jamuna Saraswati. We could go Major South. We could go down that.
Yeah. It's not like an unmitigated disaster. There are issues with the movie, and I think we've laid them out quite clearly. But I do feel people have their knives out, and they have their knives out for this movie from the start. From the first poster that came out, people had their knives out for it. Yeah. So I do think there's this element that, Aamir's been doing so well and they want him to fail. And people are still pissed off about Dhoom 3 for a little bit. Dhoom 3 is fun, so I don't understand what they're talking about. So I think there's some elements to that, but I do think the movie is fun. It could have been better, and I think your analogy of Waterworld, Waterworld is also a really good movie.
Watch it.
Yeah,
watch it.
I think people are unfair, and maybe we need to just shut down a little bit of the noise. Just go watch it.
And just go and enjoy the sight of Katrina dancing to Surya Jaan Legi.
Brilliant song.
So good. It's
and
so
just
good.
Play it everywhere. That is such a cool song.
How does she move 4 body parts at the same time? Her arms are up, her legs are down, her tummy is shaking. It's insane. Okay, I think that's it for us. Sunny, where can people find you online and get in touch with you?
Well, I'm on the easiest is www.sunnysingh.net. But if you want to get hold of me, find me on Twitter. It's SunnySingh_N6. All of my details to Facebook, Twitter, my work address are all on my website anyway, so you can get hold of me. I'm very easy to find.
And I gotta say, I love your Twitter feed. I love how you're no holds barred. You do not take any prisoners, and I am applauding it. You are amazing.
Well, thank you very much. This was fun.
Thank you. Sujoy, where can people find you online?
I'm on Twitter at @9E3K.
Great. And I'm Asim Bernie, obviously, and you can drop us an email at youpodcasting@gmail.com. We actually still we've been dissing it, and we've not been paid by Yashraj, but we still have a few Thugs of Hindostan merchandise boxes that we're giving away. I think we have 4 or 5. It's pretty cool, actually, even if the movie
Why
didn't
don't
do
I
well.
have one?
I can organize that for you, Sunny. Not a problem at all. But otherwise, anybody except Sunny can sign up to the competition on the website, and we will pick a few winners in the UK and send that on. So, and it's cool because these are the kind of things, if you don't have them, you will never be able to get them. They're quite exclusive. So check that out on our social media pages for the details. And everybody, thanks for listening. And I'm sure a lot of you will be pissed off at us, but we clearly don't care. But, thanks for listening anyway, and we'll be back in 2 weeks with a new episode. Thank you.